Hey folks, David Martin here in the USA, Pat Grosse down there in Australia, and we're excited to have you with us today. We're going to talk about some unique concepts that we know you're really going to like because ultimately these are going to help you advance and accelerate your business in 2024. Now, Pat, some of the things we were talking about, we were just mentioning this. Y2K seems like it was yesterday, but the things we were doing in 2000 are not necessarily the things that are going to work in 2024. So before we get into all that, why don't you introduce yourself, tell the group a little bit about you, and then I'll introduce myself and we'll continue.
Yes, okay. Then my name is Pat Grosse, as you can see from my background, the community entrepreneur. And I set out to work from my business to put business skills into not-for-profit organizations. And incredibly, since COVID, the outbreak of COVID back in 2020, and especially with the online sort of blast, and it happened as a consequence, I've actually realized that there's community development skills that I can bring into business. So that's one of my passions at the moment, is to take in some of the principles from the community development space and how they can help businesses grow.
Well, and
Over
growth
to
is
you.
absolutely. And real quick, just a little bit about me. My name is David Martin. I was a champion athlete in the martial art of Taekwondo, and then later a championship coach in Taekwondo. And I brought a lot of those, transferred a lot of those beliefs, mindsets, structures, habits. They transfer right over into the business world. Focus, effort, attitude. The same things that work in sport are very similar in how they work in business. Now, but Pat, one of the things you talked about, and I know we want to be real tight on our time here and get the point across, is the money, time, and effort, because that's something that everybody can relate to.
Yes, I found that. Yes, I've always known about. I mean, we all know about money, time, and effort, but I've actually, again, in the last 12 months, 12 to 18 months, as people sort of start to go back out again, and the whole business environment has changed. Things that worked, I know you mentioned Y2K in 2000, but things that worked back in 2020 are not working right now. And
Right.
so what I've been looking at, I've been analyzing the changes, and it's all been down to money, time, and effort, because people were prepared for the time frame, but now there's a more of an urgency for solutions. So and people are prepared to pay for the quick solution, and that's had a big impact on businesses. And it's the same out there when you're actually going out networking. That's the next thing as well. I'm talking about money, time, and effort, but people are actually going out. Well, online networking became a big phenomenon back in the 2020, 2021, 2022. And now we have talked about networking fatigue. People are going into those networks online and face to face and not getting the business, feeling despondent, etc. So a lot of that is down to how you're using your money, your time, and your effort. And it's not just about, we're paying this much a month and we're getting nothing. There's other things involved. And the other thing is as well, we need to consider is really being strategic about the whole concept of networking, being more in sort of intelligent about it, more sort of determined, and yeah, I'll move from there. I have to say that 2020, you got me on the 2000 book now. I actually was networking. I've got a history of networking right back from when I worked in the UK. Some great examples of how network situation I was in, because I was able to refer to people I knew. And it wasn't about, getting the sale or anything. It was building over relationships over a period of time, so that when I had to face an emergency situation, I was able to tap into those relationships. Coming over to Australia, I joined a face-to-face network back in 2013, and even today, if anybody contacts me and it's a name I recognise from that network, they're like family, because it was the long-term longevity. There's lots of things to learn about networks, but what I did at that point in time afterwards, every year at the end of the year, I would review which networks I'd been in for that year, and and the return on effort. And then I would look and think, well, are these the networks I'm going to be pursuing going into the next year? So I thought, well, coming to the end of this year, there's an opportunity here to talk about, because people will be thinking about the value of the networks they're in. And we're saying, go beyond that, go beyond networking.
No, absolutely. Because, as you're talking about that, the things that are coming to mind are like when you do that year-end review, right? It's like even in athletics, you either won or you didn't. At the end of the season, you have to look and what was your record? How did you, and it doesn't matter, American football or football, proper football, as you guys would say, basketball, wrestling, taekwondo, any of the major sports, you have a track record and it's measurable. And I think that one of the challenges, because you mentioned money, time, and effort, and I'm wondering where this one fits in. It's kind of in the time category, but it's like people have this microwave mentality that everything has to happen quickly. And, from what, they look at you and they say, well, Pat does X, but it's also that network that you've built up, the relationships, the nurturing, the growth that you've done, not only in yourself personally, but how you cultivated and cultivated and nurtured the network that you have. So where do you think, I mean, if you were going to give someone a tip before the end of the year, like to get ready for next year, what would, on the money, time, and effort concept, how would you suggest that they apply that moving into 2024?
Money's not number one. So, yes, it will come with the business, but it's consistency to keep showing up. And look, I've been in these networks where if I mentioned, grant writing and tender writing, yeah, that might be of help. But also, I've talked about working in the community development space in a business networking environment, and you could see the eyes glazing over.
Right.
So, because it's not an immediate need for the it's not an immediate need for or a connection with the people in the room. However, after a period of time, they may be connected with sports clubs, they may be connected with charities, and at some point along the way, the penny is going to drop. And
Right.
so, but even then, though, this is a classic example of why we should also get clearly across to people examples of what we're doing. So, in effect, I've been working recently to help set up charities. Now, if I had said, in the networking situation specifically, I help set up charities and I'm looking for, then you can see the light bulbs go on. So we sometimes ourselves we're guilty of being quite sort of it's sort of quite broad in what we're saying. Going into networking groups, there's so many, coaches, so many um, net, website designers or people like that. The marketplace is crowded, and so they're competing in this environment where there's lots of other people. Now, I find it difficult if to differentiate between one coach and another. But the other week, I came across a coach who told me about a 2-hour program they do and the cost of that program. I'm not going into too much details, but I thought, oh, that now matches up with somebody I know in the website space who's looking at the same market in the same kind of low cost, low time. So the money, time, and effort comes in here. And I'm going, these two could work together. So
Right.
first time in a long time, I was able to refer a coach on to somebody simply because they gave me something so specific that and this was in a one-to-one outside of networking, but if they went into the networking space and were so precise about that, some people are, but if they were, that helps me to be able to say, oh, I know somebody.
That and it's interesting that you mentioned consistency earlier, because if people are coming consistently, I saw this great graphic about consistency and it showed a ball of fire as a big ball of fire, like when people come in all hot and they're ready to go, and the big ball of fire burns out, but the small slow burn keeps on going and keeps on going and keeps on going, and that eventually gets the job done, right? And it was just a really great graphic, and I liked it because it's the same thing with everything. You know, people look at in the martial arts when they say, "Well, how did you achieve such a high level from a ranking standpoint?" I said, "Well, I've been doing it for 45 years, right?" And when I was competing, they saw they saw the training, and even now, like when people make comments about stuff I do in the gym, and I laugh, I say, I'm consistent with my training, my diet, my training, and everything. How about your business? I'm consistent with my business. It's not about doing everything all at once. I mean, yes, there are times when we have to cram and get a lot of work done and spend late nights and all over the weekends and stuff like that. But as a general rule, we're doing something every day to grow the business. And that might be for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year, and for me, in my case, I've been an entrepreneur since, oh gosh, the last 40 years. I was a teenager when I started doing businesses. And I've always learned about doing the fundamentals. And that's something that I think leads us into, you know, what we're talking about, because the fundamentals, I guess I want to say that, let me just reword that, not the fundamentals, but the strategies of networking remain the same, but the tactics are decidedly different. And it might not even be recognized as networking anymore. Is that something you would agree with, the way to be successful at it? I mean, has it changed that much?
Um, I think people's expectations need to change. So I'm just sort of looking at,
Okay.
yeah, no, sorry. Yes, I think if people, you know, what's the definition of networking? I mean, that's it. There's actually it's part of a continuum, and the basic level of networking is actually just exchange of information to follow up afterwards. And look, even what I was talking about is when you go persistently, consistently going, what you're doing is you're storing that information, and then you can use it afterwards. So, you know, there's no, sorry, I'm just sort of saying that, you know, but people who are sort of going, oh, my client, my ideal client's not in the room. That's another one of the sort of feedback you get, sort of, and it may be true. But then again, you know, if you're in a meeting, you know, why are you there in the first place? Because if you're in a meeting and you've got other coaches and you've got other people doing the same thing as you, they're not going to be your clients. They might not even be your referral partners. But why are you there? So, you know,
To
you've got
connect,
to
right? Yeah,
connect. You got to
because
connect. Yes.
we used to say in direct selling, every dud knows a stud. The person might not be in the room, but they might know people, and it might be second or third level that it
Yeah.
may be removed from, that ends up bringing you that lead, if that valuable lead, if you take the time to get to know people, to create the relationship, to build that trust, you know, to be consistent, to show you're reliable, all those different things.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether it's online networking or face-to-face networking or social media networking, because remember, there's a third element there, social media. It doesn't matter. You have to be in there for the long game. And the long game pays. I mean, it's only yesterday I got a phone call from somebody who had been referred to me, but actually this person knew me going back 2 years from another networking group. So she sort of immediately, that connection was there, and we didn't have to go through the dance, so to speak. We just went
Right.
straight down to business, straight down to business.
But that takes
So
time though, right? That's not something that just happens. I mean, and I think that's the microwave mentality that I like to talk about so much, is that people expect that trust immediately, and it takes time, right? And that's just from a traditional networking standpoint, or I think online even more so, in my opinion, because sometimes the online stuff can move fast, but again, back in 2020, everything shifted. And it's, you know, we were kind of joking about the things that worked in 2000 don't work in 2024. The things that worked, as you said, in 2020 aren't necessarily working in 20 going to work in 2024. And that's why I like to say
yeah.
the strategies are the same overall, but the tactics of how we get those strategies accomplished are certainly not the same.
Mm. I'm actually going back, really, when I talk about, I'm going beyond networking now, and I'm looking at, you know, why people are networking. You know, I talked about those people who are there, why are they there? And a lot of time is because they want to pick up new skills, new ideas. They don't realize it, it's subconscious. But why, you know, going into those networking situations, they're looking for people that they can hang on to, the mentors. people who can be the role models for them to see how they do things. So, and we come across those quite a lot, and I get people actually refer to me. So what I'm looking at doing is we've got this new initiative coming up, yourself and I, David, around the whole idea of beyond networking. So what we want to do is, as I say, it's under wraps at the moment. We're going to launch it pretty soon, and it's really good if you're, sort of in that space of, you're looking for new ideas, you've got gaps in your knowledge and skills, especially when it comes around to the marketing. And a lot of it isn't about external people teaching you. Sometimes you've got to be able to do, this is my education background,
Right.
you have to be able to
Right.
learn, digest, practice. So we've got this, again, based on money, time and effort. We've got this new sort of solution, this new program coming up in the new year. So I'm saying to you, look, we're going to put a link into this presentation at the end. And if you want more information and you want to be among the first to take advantage, or you may be just a little bit more curious about what we're up to, then we'd like to hear from you.
Absolutely. The challenge is it's going to deal with an individual component. There's going to be a little bit of technology, but there's going to be a blend of everything and how it all works together, and how that we can take this to the next level. Because again, what worked back then, what got you here isn't going to get you there. And it's going to be, there's going to be, because things are going to move fast. We don't have any choice in that. AI is out there. The world is not going back to how it was. And you can either take part or just take a seat and watch. So if you want to, what you want to do is you're going to want to click on the link, put in your name and email. Pat and I will keep you up to date and let you know when the pilot program launches. It's going to be exciting, and it's going to set you up for 2024, like beyond your imagination. That's what I'll say. Beyond your imagination,
Yes.
Because it's beyond the traditional networking. Yes.
And I kind of say, look, it's for those people where networking is not working, or where networking is not enough.
Right. So get ready, folks. I want to appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching. Again, my name is David Martin and
Pat Grosse.
Pat Grosse. We will see you. And remember, put everything you have into everything you do, because the best is yet to come.